The forest was silent. Too silent. A girl stepped into the clearing, her arms heavy with a basket of clothes. Behind her, the cabin door creaked open. A man emerged, rifle in hand, his eyes scanning the trees. He spoke once, and the girl lowered her head, like a shadow obeying its master. Then just for a second, her gaze flicked upward, eyes wide, trembling, as if she saw someone hidden in the woods. What she saw would shatter 9 years of silence. May 18th, 2006, Riverton, Nebraska, a small town surrounded by wheat fields and gravel roads. The annual sports day at Lincoln Elementary filled the air with whistles, cheers, and the steady thump of sneakers on the track. Among the crowd were two inseparable girls, Mara Quinn and Elena Park. Both were 9 years old, playful and fearless. They held hands, laughing as if the world belonged to them. Teachers moved between the games, distracted by dozens of children running in all directions. Parents carried folding chairs and coolers. It was chaos, but the harmless kind. Security was almost non-existent. No cameras, no locked doors. At 2:15 in the afternoon, Mara and Elena slipped through the side exit near the parking lot. The school janitor saw them, assumed they were leaving with a parent, and kept sweeping the hall. He remembered the sneakers, Mara's bright turquoise pair, with a silver star stitched on the heel. That was the last time anyone saw them. The bus rolled in at 3:30. The seats remained empty. By 4:00, panic spread across the school grounds. Police arrived, then volunteers, then the first search parties, scouring fields and barns. For months, Riverton lived in the shadow of missing posters, stapled to every utility pole. Blue eyes, brown hair, two girls smiling in school portraits. The trail went cold faster than anyone expected. Rumors surfaced, then died. Hope withered. For Mara's mother, Dana Quinn, time became unbearable. She lived in the farmhouse on the edge of town, the same place Mara had last fallen asleep. Every hallway echoed with absence, every bill piled higher. Bankers threatened foreclosure, but Dana refused to move. This is her home. She repeated. 9 years passed. 9 years of searching, of private investigators, of false sightings across state lines. Each lead ended in silence. Each day weighed heavier than the last. By the summer of 2015, the case was a memory to the town, except for Dana, who carried it like a scar. Then came the fire. It was August. The heat was sharp, the grass brittle. On the Briarwood farm, a rusted mower leaked fuel. A spark caught, and flames sprinted across the dry field. The blaze swallowed acres of weeds before firefighters brought it down. When the smoke thinned, they saw something strange. In the middle of the blackened soil lay a square of metal, flush with the ground. A hatch, heavy, industrial, its handle scorched but intact. Investigators gathered quickly. The soil still steamed beneath their boots. Detective Jonah Red, who had inherited the cold case years earlier, leaned down with a flashlight. "Get the ladder," he ordered. The hatch creaked open, the hinges stiff from decades underground. A sour wave of damp air poured out. One by one, the team descended. Their boots clanged against a rusted ladder until they reached concrete. The chamber was no bigger than a storage shed. 10 feet by 10, ceiling low, walls rough and unfinished. The light swept over two small cots, frames rusting, mattresses thin and stained. In the corner sat a plastic bucket, the only toilet. On a warped shelf lay stacks of cracked dishes and empty food tins. Dust covered everything, but the room carried a sense of sudden abandonment. A blanket still half folded, a can of beans left unopened, life interrupted. Then they saw the wall, childlike drawings scrawled in crayon or chalk. A lopsided sun with uneven rays, a crooked house with a chimney leaning to one side, and two stick figures holding hands. Labeled with letters M and E, Red's team fell silent. The camera flash illuminated the lines. Proof, not just theory or rumor. The girls had been here, alive, imprisoned beneath the earth. Evidence bags appeared, every item cataloged. But the find that broke Dana's breath came later. Inside a corner, Buried in ash and dirt was a sneaker, turquoise, small, worn from running. On the heel, faint but visible, the silver star. The shoe was sealed in plastic and delivered to Dana. She pressed her hand against the bag, her chest collapsing inward. She had bought those shoes for Mara on a spring afternoon at the Riverton Mall. Mara had begged for them, saying the star would make her faster. 9 years of emptiness funneled into one moment, a piece of fabric and rubber, carrying more truth than all the rumors combined. Her daughter had been taken, not lost, held here, but there was no DNA, no fingerprints. The concrete walls reeked faintly of bleach. Whoever used the bunker had erased themselves. The forensic report said the place had been active for only a short time, months, not years. Abandoned some time after the abduction. For the town, the discovery was a shock that rattled old grief. For Dana, it was gasoline on an eternal fire. If Mara had been here, she could still be alive. If Elena had been here, she could still be found. That night, as the farm smoldered under the moon, investigators worked under floodlights. Photographers captured every corner of the bunker. Reporters gathered at the edge of the police line. Dana stood outside the tape, staring at the hatch glowing silver in the haze. She imagined her daughter climbing down that ladder, small hands gripping the rungs, fear in the dark. She imagined 2 little girls pressing crayons against concrete, trying to build sunlight on a wall of stone. The fire had peeled back the surface, exposing what the earth had hidden for nearly a decade. The case was no longer cold. It was alive, burning again. And in that heat, one question rose louder than all the rest. Who knew the bunker was there? The owner of Briarwood Farm, Calvin Briar, stood at the police line, sweat dripping into his eyes. He swore he had no idea a bunker lay beneath his land. Reporters shouted questions, their cameras flashing against the blackened soil. Detective Jonah Red pressed him hard. "It's your property. How could you not know?" Calvin stammered, explaining that the far field had been unused for decades. Too rocky, too dry. The weeds had covered everything. 2 days later, in the attic of his farmhouse, Calvin dug through his grandfather's records. Dust stung his throat as he opened an old metal box. Inside lay a set of rolled blueprints, stamped with the date 1963. The pages showed detailed diagrams, walls of concrete, an emergency hatch, air vents buried beneath soil. It wasn't a criminal lair. It was a Cold War fallout shelter, built in secrecy and forgotten when the threat passed. This revelation cleared Calvin's name, but it raised another question. Who knew about the shelter when even the owner didn't? Whoever used it had inside knowledge, someone who knew the hidden corners of Briarwood Farm. Dana Quinn latched onto the thought with a grip that wouldn't let go. If the perpetrator had used the shelter, then he wasn't a stranger passing through. He was connected to their lives, their land, their trust. She spread photo albums and yearbooks across her kitchen table. Pages rustled under the weight of her obsession. She searched for faces that had been close to her daughter, teachers, coaches, neighbors, anyone who could bridge the gap between the school and the farm. Her eyes landed on a faded bulletin from New Hope Chapel, dated spring 2006. Mara had attended Sunday school there with Elena. Dana traced her finger down the list of teachers. One name froze her breath: Ephraim Cole. Cole had been the kind instructor, the one Mara adored. He was soft-spoken, devout, known for staying late to tidy hymnals and teach Bible verses by memory. Parents trusted him completely. Dana remembered how Mara's face lit up when she talked about him. "Mr. Cole makes learning fun," she had once said, swinging her legs at the dinner table. That memory now felt poisoned. If Cole had earned the girls' trust, he could have led them anywhere. If he had worked the farm under the table, he would have known about the bunker. The realization was like ice down Dana's spine. But the official employment ledgers from Briarwood showed no record of him. Frustrated, Dana turned to the one man who might know more, the old foreman, Bo Yates. She found him at a rusted trailer outside town, hunched over an engine block. His hands were black with grease, his eyes bloodshot. Before she could speak, he grumbled, "I already told the cops. I don't know anything about a bunker." Dana kept her voice steady. "I'm not here about the bunker. I'm here about Ephraim Cole. Did he ever work for you?" Yates froze for a fraction of a second, a small tick in his jaw. He wiped his hands on a rag, turning away. "Never heard of him. But Dana had seen that flicker in his eyes. She pressed harder. He taught at New Hope Chapel. The kids trusted him. He knew the girls. Did he ever work on Briarwood? Paid in cash? Yates stayed silent, shoulders tense. His silence said more than words. Dana pulled a wad of bills from her purse, the last of her savings, and laid it on the porch rail. Tell me the truth. If you protect him, you are just as guilty. The old man's face twisted with conflict. He looked at the money, then at Dana's eyes, raw, desperate, burning with grief. He finally muttered, "Yeah, I knew him. Cole worked a few seasons, never on paper, paid in cash. He liked to wander the fields, said he was looking for God." The confession hit Dana like a hammer. Ephraim Cole, Sunday school teacher, trusted by children, ghost laborer on the farm. He was the link. Detective Red's reaction was immediate. When Dana brought him the church bulletin and Yates's words, he stared at the name as if seeing a ghost. If this is true, we're dealing with someone who knew both the kids and the land. The search shifted toward Cole, but the man was gone. Records showed he had left Riverton in late 2006. The church believed he had gone on a missionary trip out west. Parishioners described him as holy, selfless, a man giving his life to God. No one questioned his departure, yet when Red contacted national missionary groups, none had any record of him. The calling was a lie. Cole had disappeared. Dana insisted they search his last residence, a rented house near the church. By then, nearly a decade had passed, with new tenants scrubbing away traces of the past. The rooms were bare, painted over, hollow, but behind the house stood a cluttered garage, heavy with dust and mildew. Dana pulled open drawers, boxes, crates. Cobwebs clung to her arms, mice scattered under rotting boards. Beneath a stack of newspapers, she found a soggy cardboard box. Inside were books, their spines water-damaged, but still legible. Her hands trembled as she read the titles aloud. Off-Grid Living, Complete Survival Guide, How to Vanish Without a Trace, The Wilderness, Homesteader's Handbook, and buried beneath them, The Anarchist's Cookbook. Dana's stomach turned cold. This wasn't missionary reading. It was a manual for disappearing. Cole had prepared for isolation, for life outside society, for erasing himself from every system. When Detective Red flipped through the pages, he cursed under his breath. The annotations in the margins were meticulous lists of supplies, notes on purifying water, building hidden shelters, even schedules for rotating campsites. The image of Cole as a meek church teacher dissolved. In its place stood something darker, a methodical survivalist with a plan to vanish, a predator who used faith as a mask and secrecy as a weapon. The revelation horrified Riverton. To the community, Cole had been gentle, harmless. Now he was the wolf in their flock, the man parents had trusted to guide their children through Scripture. For Dana, the truth deepened the nightmare. If he had been planning for years, then Mara might still be with him, hidden beyond the reach of the law. The thought lit a fire that burned through her exhaustion. She pinned Cole's photo to her wall, beside the drawings copied from the bunker. The smiling stick figures, labeled M and E, stared back at her like ghosts. She swore she would not rest until she found him. But Cole had a head start of nearly a decade. No bank accounts, no credit cards, no digital footprint. He was a phantom in a country too wide to search. Detective Red admitted what Dana already knew. If he's alive, he's living off-grid. He's got a plan. Finding him won't be easy. Dana didn't care about easy. She cared about one thing, her daughter's survival. And she knew the wolf would surface again, because even survivalists need supplies. The hunt was narrowing, but the danger was growing. The man they sought wasn't just a fugitive. He was a ghost who had lived among them, hiding behind prayer and trust. And now that ghost had to be dragged into the light. The survivalist manuals replayed in Dana's mind like a warning siren. Ephraim Cole could live hidden for years, but he couldn't conjure medicine or propane from thin air. Even ghosts need supplies. That thought became her obsession. She spent nights drawing maps, circling rural towns across Arkansas. Oklahoma, and Missouri. Her theory was simple: follow the money, even if it was cash. At the Riverton police station, Dana spread her notes across Detective Jonah Red's desk. She spoke fast, her voice trembling with urgency. He buys in bulk, pays in cash, twice a year maybe. Food, propane, medicine, and something else, feminine products. If Mara's alive, that's the signature. Red leaned back, skeptical but listening. You're asking us to sift through thousands of stores, millions of transactions. It's like chasing smoke. Dana slammed her hand on the desk. Not smoke, a pattern. His pattern. Against protocol, Red made the request. State agencies combed through records from isolated general stores. Spreadsheet after spreadsheet of transactions. The process was slow, exhausting, bureaucratic. Weeks bled into months. Dana refused to wait passively. She turned the police bullpen into her command center. Coffee cups stacked beside her, maps tacked to the wall. Her laptop glowed deep into the night as she filtered endless rows of numbers. At first, nothing. Too much noise. Rural families often stocked up in cash. Farmers bought propane by the dozen. But Dana kept combing, searching for the one anomaly that whispered louder than the rest. Then she found it. A small store in Pine Hollow, Arkansas. Twice a year, April and October. Large cash purchases appeared. Canned meats, powdered milk, propane tanks, antibiotics, painkillers, and always, discreetly, feminine hygiene products. Her pulse thundered as she traced the store's location on a map. Pine Hollow sat in the heart of the Ouachita National Forest. Dense woods, rugged terrain, nearly impossible to search. Exactly the kind of place a survivalist would vanish into. She brought the spreadsheet to Red, her voice shaking with conviction. This is him. I know it. Red frowned at the paper, rubbing his temples. It's not enough for a warrant. We need eyes on the ground. Bureaucracy stalled again. Local authorities in Arkansas dismissed the lead as circumstantial. But Dana had no patience left. 9 years had already been stolen. She made her decision before Red could stop her. That night, she packed a bag, gasoline, a flashlight, 8 photos of Mara and Cole, and a steel tire iron from the trunk. She left a note on her kitchen counter, but didn't say where she was going. Some journeys required secrecy. The drive south stretched for hours. Iowa's flat fields gave way to rolling hills, then to jagged ridges. By the time Dana reached Arkansas, the cell signal had thinned, and the air smelled of pine and damp earth. Pine Hollow General stood at the crossroads of 2 cracked county roads. A wooden sign sagged above the door. A few pickup trucks sat in the gravel lot, their drivers pausing to glare at the stranger in town. Inside, the store smelled of dust and coffee, shelves crowded with everything from canned beans to rifle ammo. Behind the counter, an older woman with wary eyes measured Dana with a look that said, outsider. Dana bought a paper map and a cup of coffee, feigning casual chatter about weather and roads. Then she laid out 2 photos. One of Cole from 2006, another digitally aged to show him older. I'm looking for an old friend, quiet man, pays cash, keeps to himself. The woman's name was Letty Moss. Her expression stayed neutral, but her eyes betrayed recognition. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. He comes in twice a year, stocks up heavy, always nervous. Dana swallowed hard. Which way does he go when he leaves? Letty pointed through the window toward a forest road, disappearing into thick green. Old Service Road 17, rough country up there. Dana paid quickly, her hands trembling as she folded the map. Outside, the air felt heavier, charged with invisible electricity. She had a direction now. The ghost had a trail. She drove the cracked road until asphalt crumbled into gravel, then into dirt. Trees pressed in close, branches scraping her car. Her phone lost its last bar of service. Silence wrapped around her like a vice. The sedan struggled against ruts and rocks. The undercarriage scraped. The engine whined. Dana's knuckles whitened on the wheel. Every mile forward felt like trespassing into someone else's kingdom. When the road narrowed too far, she pulled off into a thicket, covering the car with branches. She grabbed her flashlight, map, and tire iron. From here, the journey would be on foot. The forest was alive with sound. Chirping insects, distant caws, the snap of twigs under her boots. She moved cautiously, heart hammering with every step. Somewhere ahead, smoke teased the air. It was faint, almost invisible, but Dana spotted the thread of gray curling above the trees. She crouched low, moving downhill, branches whipping her arms. The smell of burning wood grew stronger. At last, she reached the edge of a clearing. Her breath caught. In the center stood a crude cabin, built from rough-hewn logs and sheets of corrugated metal. Its windows were boarded tight, its presence defiant against the wilderness. Parked beside it was a Ford truck, blue paint peeling, fenders rusted. This was it. Ephraim Cole's lair. Dana crouched behind an oak, eyes wide, every nerve on fire. Minutes stretched like hours. The forest hummed with cicadas, but inside her head was silence. Then the cabin door creaked open. A figure stepped out, a girl, carrying a basket of laundry. She moved slowly, head bowed, shoulders slumped. Her hair hung long and tangled. Her dress was plain, hand-stitched, faded with age. Dana's heart stopped. It was Mara, 17 now, but unmistakable. The face Dana had kissed goodnight 9 years ago, aged and hollowed by captivity. Her daughter was alive. Dana pressed her hand against her mouth to stifle a sob. She wanted to run to her, but fear held her frozen. If Cole was nearby, one wrong move could shatter everything. The door opened again. Ephraim Cole emerged, beard wild, hair streaked with gray. His frame was lean, hardened by years in the wilderness. A rifle rested casually in his grip. He spoke to Mara in a low, commanding voice. She nodded, eyes fixed on the ground, her movements robotic. The power dynamic was chilling. He ruled her entirely. From her hiding spot, Dana's chest burned with rage. The man the community once praised as holy had become a captor, molding her daughter into submission. She gripped the tire iron tighter, its cold weight anchoring her, but she didn't move yet. She couldn't, not with Cole scanning the tree line, his eyes sharp and suspicious. The forest was his ally. Every rustle, every breath could betray her. So Dana waited, watched. Her heart pounded so hard she feared it would echo through the trees. For the first time in 9 years, she had her daughter within reach. Mara bent to set down the basket. Sunlight fell across her face, revealing scars of malnutrition and fear. Yet in her eyes, deep within, a flicker of the little girl remained. Dana whispered under her breath, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "Hold on, baby, I'm here." The final confrontation was coming. And this time, Dana would not leave the forest without her daughter. Dana crouched behind the oak, her breath shallow and uneven. The cabin door had closed again, but she knew both Mara and Cole were inside. Every muscle in her body screamed for action, yet fear demanded patience. The sun dipped lower, painting the forest in streaks of gold. Shadows lengthened, turning the clearing into a stage for whatever came next. Dana tightened her grip on the tire iron, cold steel pressing into her palm. Finally, the door creaked open. Mara stepped out again, carrying a bucket toward the water barrel. She moved slowly, her head down, like a prisoner rehearsing obedience. Then Cole followed. The rifle hung loosely in his hand, but his eyes never rested. They flicked from tree to tree, sharp and suspicious, as though he always expected the past to return. Dana knew waiting longer would mean losing her nerve. She stepped from the trees, every heart beat like thunder in her chest. Her voice cut the silence. "Mara." The girl froze. The bucket slipped from her hands, water splashing across the dirt. Her eyes shot upward, wide and confused, searching for something she had buried years ago. Cole spun, rifle raised, his face twisting into rage. "Who are you?" he barked. Though his eyes already told the truth, he recognized her, the mother who refused to disappear. Dana lifted her empty hand, palm open. "It's me, Mara." "Mom, remember your sneakers, the ones with the silver star? You said they made you run faster." Mara's lips parted, trembling. Fragments of memory flickered across her face. Moments of a childhood long suppressed, but fear dragged her backward, closer to Cole. The captor seized her arm, yanking her toward the cabin. "She's mine," he snarled. "I saved her from the filth of the world. You won't take her." Dana lunged forward, swinging the tire iron. The steel slammed against the rifle, knocking it aside. Cole countered with a violent shove, driving Dana into the dirt. Pain flared down her shoulder, but she scrambled to her feet. Her lungs burned, adrenaline roaring louder than fear. She swung again, desperate and wild. Cole struck back with the rifle stock, catching her across the ribs. The world tilted, breath ripped from her chest. She staggered, but refused to fall. Mara stood paralyzed, eyes darting between them. Years of conditioning held her frozen, but when Cole's hands locked around Dana's throat, squeezing the air from her lungs, something inside Mara snapped. Her gaze shifted. The illusion of safety collapsed. This wasn't a savior. It was a monster crushing her mother's life away. She grabbed a piece of firewood near the cabin door. Hands trembling, heart pounding, she swung with all the force her body could summon. The wood cracked against the back of Cole's skull. He grunted, stumbling forward. His grip loosened. Dana gasped, air rushing back into her lungs like fire. The opening was small, but it was enough. Dana snatched the rifle from the ground and leveled it at him. Her voice shook, but her hands were steady. It's over. Cole staggered back, blood matting his hair, his eyes locked on Mara, betrayal burning in his glare. "You were mine," he whispered, as though the words alone could rebind her. Dana didn't fire. She pulled Mara close, gripping her daughter's trembling hand. "We're leaving," she said, voice sharp, undeniable. They fled into the forest, branches tearing at their clothes, roots clawing at their feet. Behind them, the cabin sank into silence. Dana's lungs seared with each step, but she refused to stop. She dragged Mara upward through the steep incline, her muscles screaming with exhaustion. Every crack of a twig felt like pursuit. At last, through the trees, the outline of her hidden car appeared. They dove inside, Dana jamming the key into the ignition. The engine roared to life. Gravel sprayed as the tires clawed the dirt road. The forest swallowed behind them. For the first time in years, Mara sat in a car seat beside her mother. She rocked back and forth, eyes blank, the world outside a blur. Dana reached for her hand, squeezing gently. "You're safe now. I've got you." Mara flinched at first, then let her fingers linger in the grip. Hours later, they emerged onto paved roads. Cell service returned, bars flickering into life. Dana pulled over, tears blinding her vision, and called Detective Red when his voice answered, sharp with panic. She whispered, "I have her. Mara's alive." Silence, then a rush of orders. "Stay where you are. We're coming." Police convoys reached them within the hour. Sirens split the night, red and blue lights painting the trees. Red pulled Dana into a fierce embrace before rushing to secure the cabin. Cole was found inside, barely conscious. Blood dried on his scalp. He offered no fight, no apology. His silence was louder than confession. At the hospital in Arkansas, Mara lay under fluorescent lights, doctors moving quickly around her, malnourished, scarred, 17 in body, but fragile as a child. Dana stayed by her bedside, whispering stories of home, even when Mara stared blankly at the ceiling. Healing would take more than medicine. It would take time, trust, and patience. One night, when the ward was quiet, Dana asked the question that had haunted her for 9 years. Her voice cracked. What happened to Elena?" Mara's eyes closed, her breath hitching. The words spilled like broken glass. Elena had fallen sick that first winter, coughing, fever burning. Cole refused hospitals, muttering prayers instead of medicine. Mara held her hand until the end. Elena died in the bunker, her small body racked with infection. Cole buried her in the woods, unmarked, unseen. Dana wept silently, her tears soaking the hospital sheets. Later, investigators confirmed the truth. Bones uncovered near the old shelter in Riverton. Elena finally came home, laid to rest in a town that had never stopped mourning. At Cole's trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Journals filled with twisted scripture, restraints, photographs, testimony from Mara. Broken but brave, the jury returned swiftly, guilty on all counts, multiple life sentences, no parole. His isolation would last until death, his reign of terror sealed behind bars. For Riverton, closure came with grief. For Dana, the journey was only beginning. She had her daughter back, but not the little girl she remembered. She had a scarred young woman learning to breathe again. They returned to the farmhouse together. The same door frame still bore pencil marks from Mara's childhood hike. This time, Dana didn't cry. She simply touched the faded lines and whispered, "We keep going." On quiet evenings, they sat on the porch, watching the wheat bend in the wind. The silence between them was fragile but real. It was no fairy tale ending, but it was survival, and survival was enough.